Have you ever wondered what it will be like to let the dew-slicked grass of Cyrodiil tickle your unspeakables as you gallop through the wilderness in the roar? The cold breeze of the Gerald Mountains caressing your nipples like the Chapel di Bala steeples as you stare into the distance as the warmth of Todd's face kisses your cheeks as he sits behind the Velvet Mountains. Undressed, unashamed. Now, the idea of liberating Oblivion with nothing but my naked, unyielding body sounds simple, and that's because it is. No armor, no weapons, no shame. Just pure, undiluted flesh and a handful of magic that only buffs, heals, and controls. Think of me as a shirtless therapist with violent tendencies and a god complex. We start with the only logical race choice, Breton, lathering us with a 50% resistance to magic and also 50 bonus magicka. You see, this isn't just a character, this is the ideal form of man, a being so committed to nakedness that the very idea of bathing is offensive. Water is just liquid clothes. To cover him is to deny him. You see, Sir Bumbleton is a man of Sir, a man of elegance. For to be a man of such prowess of the fist, one must push his fists so deep into his fellow members' asses. This is indeed to show them that you are the most dominant man in the room, and this is the scientific way of becoming a Sir such as myself. Not only must I demonstrate my unyielding dominance in the ancient art form of circumcisions, I must also grace others with the sacred touch of my knuckles. It would be unjust to deprive them, for I am a man of fairness. As the great Todd once said, to be struck by me is to receive a baptism by pain. This is the way of the Sir, a holy path paved with cracked jaws, magic resistance, and airborne genitalia. Amen. After giving the Goblin Witch a swift left-right goodnight, I regroup with the one, the only, urinal erectum.
They've not seen what I've seen.
Come on, squeal!
At this point, I make the kind of tactical decision that only can be described as nude genius. I take the Lord Birth Sign. Now, being a Sir of Nakedness is already a prestigious title, but becoming a Lord Sir, that's sheer Garath with a PhD level thinking. What you must understand is the Lord Birth Sign grants me a delectable 15% magic resistance. Stacking that with the Breton racial bonus gives me a total of 65% magic resistance. That means nearly 2/3 of enemy spells just shrug and fall off like wet paper against my perfectly sculptured body. But here's the real kicker. The Lord also hands me a plus 15 armor rating. Now, I know what you are thinking, but Santa, armor is a betrayal of your sacred flesh cult. And you're right, armor and clothing are oppressive constructs designed to suppress the raw, radiant power of my unfiltered body. But numerical armor rating? That's just math, my sweet child. Now, at this point in the story, you're meant to stay behind Daddy's septum as you watch a man drive a knife in his neck. But this is not the way of Sir Bumbleton, for Sir Bumbleton is a man of honor. I intervene, thereby ripping a hole in the timeline wide enough for my nipples to jiggle through. Perched above like the divine man I am, I do not help, I observe. This is the way of the Lord Sir. In the aftermath of madness, I craft my custom class, a build so specifically illogical it loops back around to divine wisdom, and its name so fitting, the nipple. And as any true Lord of the Bear would do, I strip every man in that sewer of their burdens, armor, weapons, dignity, and set their bodies free, a monument of liberation. Thus truly begins the story of the liberation of Oblivion by my naked body. Like any start to an Oblivion playthrough, it is customary to waddle your cheeks across the river and pay a visit to the local bandit camp and conquer your first dungeon, Vilverin. Call it a rite of passage, if you will, a sacred pilgrimage into Todd Howard's grand vision, a world where physics are suggestions. I deep throat the rite of passage like the Sir Lord of the Nipple Bareback Britain I am, sneaking behind bandits ever so sneaky-like, with a large illuminated light in my hand, rendering them blind, fingering their asses for items, just as Todd intended the game to be played.
Jump on my sword while you can.
Daddy, chill.
Now, with the tutorial truly over, it is time to unleash the full vision of what Sir Bumbleton is destined to become. You see, hand-to-hand combat in Oblivion is widely regarded as one of the most underwhelming and spiritually disappointing forms of violence in Tamriel. Even with maxed strength, 100 hand-to-hand, and your fatigue fortified like a skooma fiend on leg day, you are still only going to be doing a maximum of around 15 damage per punch. But you see, I do not care for the maximum output of the fisting, for I have bigger plans, galaxy-sized brain plans. And so, like any self-respecting nude menace with a god complex, I beamline it straight to the Mages Guilds, completing every recommendation as fast as possible, from taking an oddly heavy ring from a drowned corpse and taking their clothes, to fighting a beggar behind a church only for them to get exploded by magic. Every guild house experienced the power of just go bareback. But you see, this is not about the spells they give me. It's about the ones I can create once I gain access to the holy grail of the Arcane University's spellmaking altar. But turns out that despite having a galaxy-sized brain, the kind of intellect that could theorize fifth-dimensional nipple physics, I completely forgot a crucial little mechanic. You need to be a certain level in a magic school to create and use certain spells. Thus begins the Great Enlightenment Tour, parading like the Great Lord Sir I Am through the Arcane University, spamming low-level light spells directly into people's eyeballs like some deranged lighthouse with a vendetta, continuously violating Imperial Legion battle mages' ripe plums, smothering scholars' faces with my moist hands. And finally, after hundreds of invasively glowing interactions, my illusion hits level 50, the sacred threshold, the moment of ascension. I was now worthy to wield the greatest tool ever forged for a man, paralysis. With such advancements in my DNA, I thought I would drop by the arena to watch some local talent, which turned out to be the most thrilling event to be captured by man himself. After a good 3 weeks of in-game days and shelving the King's Amulet as the only means of safe storage, it was about time that I visited Waynon Priory to give Joffrey the Amulet of the Kings and where I was to learn about Son of Daddy Septim hiding out in Kavach. I cut shapes up the mountainside with my perfect specimen run. I agree to help with zero context and embrace a flame atronach like no man has ever embraced one before. Some would say this was the night Lord Sir Bumbleton of the Nipple Bareback Mountain laid with a woman. Amazing. Now, when entering your first screaming hot portal of Mehrunes Dagon's prolapse colon, you're meant to be greeted by a man named Elin Vonius. But for me, well, come back. Maybe it was because he learned about the one time I watched over a lady while she slept peacefully. We will never know. Flailing my almost certainly said sausage to the plains of Oblivion was seemingly more of an easier affair than one was to expect, with the occasional hairy moment of death as a clan fair continuously headbutted my scrotum and immense intimate arousals. You see, how the strength of this build works comes into play with the idea of control and how silly paralyzing enemies works in this game. It's simply delectable. Finally making it to the top of the tower, I grabbed the Sigil Stone, liberating the first plane of Oblivion with my shared nakedness. Sir Bumbleton, bearer of the nipple, Lord of the Bear. This is truly the way of the Sir Lord Bareback Breton. With the understanding that I alone had the power and combat prowess never seen before in these lands, I stormed the gates of Kavach where Son of Daddy Septim was cosplaying as a brother. After the great shock of a random telling him that his life has been a lie, I returned to Waynon Priory, showing Martin what one must do to people that are burdened by the cloth, only to be interrupted mid-fisting by Brother Piner.
Quick! He may need our help.
Entering the chapel, more chaos unfolded as I made a man fall on a seat, most likely breaking his back. Joffrey appeared delighted by our appearance and found Brother Piner praying at the altar, or so it seemed. So I did the only thing that seemed correct in a house of the holy, and watched Martin contemplate what it means to be a man of holy gesture. Joffrey discovers that the amulet had been stolen, but this isn't my primary concern right now, for all I care about is the fact that not only do I visit the Cloud District often, I also visit the Cloud Ruler Temple often.
I'm not used to giving speeches, but...
Well then, thank you, Martin.
With all that done, I was to meet with Boris at the local tavern in the Imperial City, who was infinitely necking back mead as if his life depended on it. So I comforted him, allowing his head to caress my moist skin. But you see, this is just the way of Todd himself. Boris explains that I must wait for him to leave and follow the not-so-suspicious man in the corner reading a book. And to my surprise, I learned that he was a man of half cloth. But as any great man would do, I removed the rest. With the discovery of Mythic Dawn Commentaries 1 inside Ashtray's cheeks, I was off to speak to Tarmina, who was seemingly an expert of Daedric cults, and hands me a copy of the second volume. So off I headed to first edition of Torment Fintius.
Take this. It's from a friend.
Gwyneth finally appears, and after taking a look at my perfectly sculptured body, hands over the 3rd volume without complications. No fight, just raw intimidation via cheekbones and nipple shine. Sir Bumbleton's legend continues. Books retrieved, Colts uncovered, pants removed, as Todd intended. Something need to set up a meeting to get the 4th volume, but I completely forgot about the arrangement that was planned prior. Now, this may have seemed like a mistake, a blunder, a tactical oversight, but guess again. For you see, when you are no longer shackled by the oppression of cloth, something truly transcendent happens. And what is that, you ask? What great awakening does the flesh discover once it's kissed by the wind of freedom? Not a damn clue. Anyway, with the 4th volume in hand, after another successful flawless execution of a plan, it was off to play some goblin bowling. Amazing. After terrorizing Tamina and watching her sleep as I stand directly on top of her for hours on end unfazed, I was off to watch the sun move across the ground in the cemetery, which reminded me of that one time I went to band camp and decided to put a bottle of lube down a trumpet head, proceeding to... So off I headed to Lake Arius Caverns. The caverns which can go one of 2 ways. You can sneak, blend in, and play the polite acolyte, or you can start a naked liberation movement. Naturally, I chose the latter. Stripping everyone of their robes, a naked fiesta if you will, a celebration of Todd's true vision, to show Mehrunes Dagon the true power of the bareback Sir Lord Supreme. But even when confronting the statue face to face, Sir Bumbleton had other ideas. Naked bodies lay on the cavern floors like works of art, a renaissance of nudity, the Balenciaga of freedom. Todd would be proud. Some time passed as I continued to terrorize the realm with my flailing flesh, from breaking into a house to steal Gerald's order to killing a homeless man who I thought may be plotting with the Mythic Dawn. But it turns out he was incredibly innocent.
Stop! Thief! Look at the muscles on you.
Yeah, boy.
With Bruma once again saved, the next step to making Naked great again was to get the Daedric artifact for Martin, which leads us to one of my favorite quests in Oblivion. Now, for whatever reason in this game, your personality depicts how hot you are to other NPCs. And even when you look like you have been pulled out of the anus of a homeless man's dead cat, you can still be Tamriel's sexiest man alive. But if you drink copious amounts of cheap wine, well, you know.
Julian.
After being deemed ugly enough, it was time to obtain Namera's ring, which had me venturing off to a rune just down from the shrine and touching priests that have been tormenting the Forgotten Ones with their flame. One by one, the predators become the hunted, watching them getting absolutely annihilated by a stampede of feral naked cultists wielding weapons. This is simply poetic. Namera was pleased, and I was to once again save Bruma. At this point in time, you may be thinking to yourself, how can one city be bent over the table and internally ram-raided on a daily basis? Well, it's simple really. Because you see, Bruma is a little cum slut. With Bruma's largest defense they could muster up, it was time to liberate Oblivion from the clutches of a glowing, gaping arsehole, which can be summed up in 4 words.
So far, so good. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Unfortunately for one, it was not so far, so good anymore. With the sigil stone collected and Sir Bumbleton's naked body, Bruma was liberated once again. I again speak to Joffrey, but I do not care for getting aids for Bruma, as I am confident in my thought process that they indeed already have aids from the amount of times that place has been getting backed or pummeled. I speak to Martin, who wants me to speak to Joffrey about taking the blood from a dead man or something like that, which is quite profound if you ask me. But anyway, off I was to head to the snow peril of the mountains, where I was to face my greatest enemy yet. Now, for whatever reason, in Todd's great scheme of things, he decided to make some enemies completely resistant to the paralyze effect, such as skeletons and vampires. But one would think, logically, that ghosts should also resist such things. But they don't, and we thank Todd for this oversight, as this creates pure entertainment. Amazing. Now, our main objective in Sanctuary Tour is to take down 4-blade skeletons to set them free from the grips of not being able to be paralyzed, which started off on a very hairy foot, much like a hobbit's foot. Maybe make that 2 hairy feet. The 3rd blade went down with no issues, but the 4th one. Let's talk about this for a brief moment, for the connection we made was something unparalleled. Locking eyes to socket, skin to bone, the tale of nakedness, for we both understand the true meaning of unsolicited actions, Beauty and the Beast. I hail the fallen comrades the only way I see fit. I take the armor of Tiber Septon and bring it back to Martin, who doesn't seem to quite understand the meaning of efficient research, as I was sent out once again, but this time to find the great Wilkid Stone, which started off all fun and games, but ultimately had me running for my dear life. You see, even though Sir Bumbleton is a man of defined symmetry, a walking Fibonacci sequence with nipples carved by the 9 themselves, Todd Howard's final vision, he has enough dignity to not fall for the seductive thought of headless head, but not enough to break into a man's house, sit down in front of his fire, ride a bear, take said man from the back and steal his clothes. This is simply the way Todd intended. Perfection. With all 3 pieces of Exodia returned to Martin, the hour had finally come that once again I'll ride to Bruma's aid. The beacons were lit, the greatest defense of all time prepared for one last battle for this stupid city, as the creatures of Lord Dagon struggled with the thought of another siege of Bruma. But at last, the great remastered goatsy of Dagon presented itself. With haste, I penetrated it. I opened up a cage with a massive lever. Amazing. I scaled down the side of a tower. I battled what seems to be the strongest Demora known to mankind, but there is no time to lose. So I simply do what any galaxy-sized brain Mr. Worldwide would do. Run.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Which again is not out of cowardness, but in sight of the great understanding. Liberation was once again achieved through the sheer force of raw aerodynamics. I returned to Arcane University once again, ever so aggressively clapping the cheeks of Jasper Stagen until I reach expert level illusion. The final piece to my arsenal was completed, with only but a fitting name. I was ready for paradise. A place of beauty, a place of punching daydrops through the air like balloons, a place of unnatural tans that make me look like a possible villain from Scooby-Doo. Darth Maul tries to block my way to eternal happiness. I stun lock him to death and slide my hand into his ass to take the bands of the Chosen. For I am the Chosen. Now, at this point in the game is where you meet a mysterious hooded man named Aldemil, a man trapped in the beauty of the Forgotten Grotto, a schlongathon paradise crafted by the Understanding. So much understanding, in fact, that he is willing to help me on the quest of killing Mancoon Cameron. All I need to do is act like his prisoner. Entering cardiac arrest, I was presented with the hardest tasks known to mankind. You see, after being forced to remove the clothes of Raven and Rumor, my mind went into a vegetative state. Sort of like the one you go in when you realize waiting to heal prompts him to respawn, to where Todd holds a gun to my head and tells me to repeat the process again. Which in the process made me find out that you can pickpocket Mankar to infinity without him even caring, allowing you to freely level your sneak. How pointless indeed.
Take it.
It's worthless to me anyway.
After getting my ass handed to me for what I recall through my immense PTSD injected brain of a good 2 hours, I was free. I hand over the Amulet of Kings. I enter the big Skyrim door to the High Chancellor asking the whereabouts of Martin, even though he is in the room, and finally find a good reason to use my masterfully crafted spell. Welcome to Sexually Arseholted. I get thrown in flames, which gives me closure of what Mehrunes packing. It's safe to say, I was very disappointed. I stare in awe at a man trapped in orange and lead Martin to what may have been a very close call. But lucky for him, I sexually assaulted them all, allowing Sean Bean to once again do what he does best, die heroically.
Where's Martin? I must congratulate him. Mehrunes Dagon is defeated.
What's
cast back into oblivion. We've won!